Let's send it back over to Scott Wapner, joining us with a panel of all-star investors. Help us navigate what might be next for the market, Scott.
All right, Carl, thank you so much. Back with Josh and Adam and Courtney and Tom Lee. And we talked earlier, Tom, we kept it broad. We looked at the backdrop for this record-setting rally. Now let's talk about positioning, exactly where our viewers want to think about investing, no matter who wins. How can we talk about that without addressing tech, the trade of the year? You've been a big proponent of the Mag 7, obviously. What's your view now?
I think tech still works into year end, but with the election behind us, I do think investors are going to be looking for other areas on a bet that market breadth is expanding. And I think one place they'll turn to is, oh, well, where would animal spirits come back? Things that could benefit from mergers, or where are multiples low so I can see PE expansion. And that would take people to small caps, financials, basically the rest of the market, actually.
That is, Courtney, where you do have Wolf Research talking about tonight, financials being a big election winner, talking about the regional banks as well. Do you see that as a space if former President Trump is reelected tonight as president once again, that is a space to keep your eye on?
Yeah, regional banks specifically are one that are talked about often right now, because what you're seeing is in this administration, though they really haven't turned down a lot of M&A, it's so hard to get these through that there's pretty much no M&A activity, but that is expected to pick up in a Trump administration. So absolutely, that's something that you want to look at. If Trump were to be in office, that's probably going to start to take off here.
So on the idea, Adam, of tech, I want to read you something that the Wedbush analyst Dan Ives, familiar to all of our viewers, of course, on the possibility of a Trump win and what that would mean for that space. A major change in tariffs, he says, and a harsher stance on China, we believe, would significantly impact the supply chain. NVIDIA, Beijing, retaliatory impacts on Apple and Tesla are likely and slow the pace of the AI revolution. Is he onto something or not?
Look, I think investors are positioned in 5 or 6 growth themes independent of the election. AI semis is one of them. If he's talking about some short-term supply disruption, he could be right. But I think if you're investing money, you want to own compute and anything associated with it. You want to own software around that. There's electrification industrials, there's housing building materials, there's power. There's so many themes that are in place, and I think people are positioned to own those themes. I'd also say within tech, there's a little bit of this misnomer. Because the market cap of big tech is so big, you have to own it to keep up with the S&P. But if you look at the dispersion in the group, I mean, there's tons of stocks that are up or down a lot this year. It's Palantir's up 198, Dell's up 75, FICO's up 73, GoDaddy 50. I mean, there's tons of dispersion. Intel's down 55. You could have picked stock this year pretty well. It wasn't just the Mag 7 that worked. I think it's a little bit of an excuse because it's hard to beat the S&P when they're so big. But I think stock pickers had a very good year in tech, generally given the dispersion.
You have regulatory issues to think about, do you not, Josh? Under a potential Harris administration, the Biden administration hasn't exactly been friendly and embracing of big tech. Google, Apple, Amazon, Meta, all facing some sort of actions or threats.
Yeah, and they're facing those threats not just in the United States, but all over the world. And I think that overhang remains regardless. In a typical election, you would guess that big business would be aided by the Republican candidate. And certainly, if Donald Trump comes in, we're probably saying goodbye to the head of the SEC, the head of the FTC. That seems likely. But Donald Trump's not a big fan of Google. There's complaints tonight all over social media about the way search seems to be favoring the Harris side. You're going to hear so much rhetoric about these platforms and whether or not they're against Trump. We've seen that in the past with Facebook, back when it was called Facebook. So my take is don't overthink it. Look at what's already rallying as the needle leans toward Trump. You've got Bitcoin up 5%, HOD, actually a November high. You've got the Russell 2000 futures up 2.5%. It's a notable move, given there's not that much volume there. And by the way, Courtney, I completely agree with you. You can't say regional banks are going to rally and not think the Russell's going to work. That's basically synonymous trade. And then Tesla up 7% after hours. Those are probably the things that will have longevity if the result goes toward Trump. If it goes toward Harris, we have to start talking once again about antitrust and breaking up platforms, and it's another 4 years of that.